absolutely beautiful. Hey guys, Mickey from Tom's Outdoors. Welcome back to our intro series to fly fishing. Now, most people, if you're looking at a whole fly fishing combo, might go to the reel next and think that's the next most important thing. That's a trap. The next most important thing, and probably I would say one of the most important things about fly fishing, is the fly line, because it is the weight that you're casting when you're fly fishing. It's that simple. If you don't have this weight, you can't cast a fly properly. The easiest way to look at it is to look at, once again, our old friend, the spin rod. I'll be back in a second. Now on the end of this spin rod, I have a lure. I think this one weighs, I don't know, probably about 30 odd grams or so. So it's a heavy little guy. Now you might go bait fishing sometimes, you might have a lead sinker or some other type of weight, but that weight there is what I'm going to catapult out with my spring, my spin rod, okay? I hold that weight back, it's bending the rod, it's creating energy, that weight is, and then I push that weight forward and release it, and I get a nice long cast. That's all you need to know about spin rods. Now, when we're looking at fly rods, it's the exact same process. We've got to get weight behind the rod, let the rod bend, and then release that energy to go forward and make our cast. That weight is our fly line. The fly line is one of the most important parts of our system, because if we get the weight wrong, we won't be able to cast our rod effectively and deliver our fly to the trout. Now, lines come in all different kinds of shapes and sizes, just like fly fishing rods. And just like fly fishing rods, we designate them into weights. So this is a 5-weight line. It matches up perfectly with our 5-weight rod. If you wanted to know what the actual weight of a fly line was, you'd have to pull off about the first 30 feet of line or so. We'd put that all together, stick it in a pot, melt it down, and when you pulled it out, forced it together in your hand, you'd have a 30-gram or so clump of material that you could throw with the fly rod. Wouldn't be a very nice cast, but it would bend it. That's the whole point of a fly line. The fly line has the correct amount of weight to load a fly rod. When we're talking about load, we're talking about bend. We want to be able to bend, put some load into the rod with a back cast. We're going to talk about more about casting later on in this series, and then release that energy with a forward cast. Now a fly line isn't all the same. Fly lines can be split into 2 sections. The front section, which we call the head, and that's usually about 30 feet long on an average 5-weight, is a nice heavy section of line with quite a thick, what we call taper to it. The other part of that is at the back end of the line, the running line or the shooting line has a much skinnier diameter. Now, unlike your sinker or your lure on a spin or bait fishing rod, you don't just crumple together your fly line and try and throw it. Nothing much happens. You use the rod, and in conjunction with the rod and the line, you cast that line out. The rod gets loaded by the line, unloads on the way forward, and releases our energy. Now, as I said, this is a 5-weight line, which perfectly matches this rod. But line weights come in just as many different weights as rod weights. And you technically don't have to put the exact weight line for your rod on your rod. Some people like to put on a line size heavier because they have more weight in the system, which makes casting, especially at short distances, sometimes a bit easier. That can be a trick to get some beginners out of trouble, but most lines these days are weighted what we call aggressively, with a forward taper. Now, bear with me for a second here. So, cutaway to fly lines. Now, we're taking a deliberate look at some of the different tapers of fly lines, although these are all 5-weight lines. You can get a little bit confusing when you walk into a store and you ask for a 5-weight line for your 5-weight rod, and there are 6 options. There are actually more. I've narrowed it down a little bit for you. Now, one word I've been throwing around a lot is taper. Taper is really important because a fly line isn't just one even piece of line. It's skinnier at one end and fatter at the other end. The front end can be almost twice as fat. That first 30 feet can be twice as fat and twice as heavy as the back end of the line. For instance, on this one here, the first 30 or 40 feet of this fly line is very aggressively tapered. There's a lot more weight distribution at the front end. That's great for picking it up and punching out a cast quickly. Everything loads up nice and fast, nice and powerfully. Whereas on our more gentle tapered lines, our head, our taper is a lot smoother, and that's a lot more suited to slower action rods and delicately putting down flies. Now, I've talked about the head. What about the tail or the running line? That head, that first 30 or 40 feet in most fly lines today is generally a bit thicker. The back end line is what we call the running line or the shooting line. It's not designed to hang out in the air and do much. It's designed to lay around at the bottom of the boat or at your feet. And when you get that 30 foot of line in the air, you're going to shoot and let that line run out, okay? That's why it's thinner. It's designed to be having a less diameter so you get less resistance and more distance. Now, I've got a couple different brands here. I've got Scientific Anglers and I've got Rio. They're the two main brands that we stock. And it's really good to go through and look at some of the similarities and differences in these tapers, because tapers matter. Now, you'll notice straight away that these two, which are both 5 weights, one's called Trout and one's called Perception, but it has a picture of a trout on the box. And these are both what I'd call standard trout tapers. They both have a very similar taper when we look at it, and that taper is designed for really nice, delicate presentations, maybe with a single dry fly or maybe a dry and a dropper or a little streamer. It's designed for pretty well light trout fishing. Now you can put that on a 5-weight rod and still use it for a lot of different things. Now if you're looking for a more all-round taper, then you're looking at the Infinity in the Scientific Anglers and the Rio Gold. Now these ones, again, if you turn them over, they're both still 5-weight lines, but they are a touch heavier 5-weight lines. Not all 5 weights are built the same. And these ones, their taper is a touch more aggressive. They've got a bit more in what we call the head of the line, the front of the line. They're a bit chunkier. They're better for turning over bigger dry flies, maybe a dry and with a heavy dropper, or a bigger streamer and that sort of thing. If you're looking for an all-round line, middle of the road, you can't go wrong looking at what I'd call a weight forward taper, okay? So we have our standard trout tapers, which are designed to be a bit more gentle. They still have a bit of weight forward, but they're more evenly tapered. Then we have a more aggressive taper where we're looking at a real all-rounder that can do a lot of different things. And then we start looking at the big boys, the really aggressive tapers. Now in this one, we've got the Rio Grande and my personal favorite, the Scientific Anglers MPX. Now, these are both heavier again. So even though they're 5-weight lines, if we melted down that first 30 feet, these ones would actually be the heaviest because there's a bit of wiggle room in 5-weight. These ones are great for pretty well bigger flies, bigger rigs, heavy nymphs, big dries and big streamers. Now the reason I like these ones myself is that they load up those really fast action rods really well. If we look at our medium tapers, they're going to load up our medium action rods really well. And again, with our trout tapers, they're going to load up our soft action rods really well. So all of that action, length and taper all comes back to complete this puzzle so that you end up with the right fly line for your rod. Now again, if you're starting out, I'd say just going down the middle of the road in a 5-weight, you can't go wrong. Fly line taper can be quite difficult to understand because fly line taper can change because of your manufacturer, because of fashion, and as we all know, fly fishermen are some of the most attractive people in the world. And one of the most important tips too, when it comes to spending money or to investing in a certain aspect of your gear, line is one of the most important investments you can make. A rod's fantastic, a rod's like a car. The line is like your tires. You don't want to get a Ferrari and put bald, clapped out tires on it. It's not going to be fun to drive. You'd rather have a wicked good Toyota Corolla with nice Subaru Rally slicks on it, okay? You want to get a durable, easy shooting, and easy to maintain line that's going to stay with you for a long time. The line is the key to your whole system. You don't want to go out of your way getting a nice rod and a nice reel and then not get a decent line. Always invest in line first. Buy line, sell high. Buy low, sell high. I don't know how stocks work. I'm a fly fishing guide, man. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you have any questions on fly line, you can leave a comment down there. Once again, you can give us a call or drop in the shop. Pat's always available by fax. Now, side note, we are going to be doing another video quite soon going into detail on lines. It's just a short one to get you an understanding of what a fly line is.